Back to my channel. So let's continue with our Django inventory management series. So in the last tutorial, this tutorial left from the last tutorial, we have been able to create an index. We have been able to learn about templates and templates inheritance in Django. So in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and actually create the login page where the users will be able to log in and to be able to log out and stuff like that. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply go ahead and I'm going to go into my URLs folder. So I'm going to go into my template, my project folder, which is going to be inventory system. I'm going to go under URLs here, and in here I'm going to import something. But before I get started, you can see I want the base URL to be the login. So if a person goes to the website initially, he gets prompted with that login page, right? So now we want to change that to be, because currently the root URL is being used by our inventory system. So if I just go back to inventory system and I refresh, you can see we're just getting back by default we're just getting back the hello world from index, right? So how do I override that thing? So I'm going to now change this. I'm going to now put in here, I want to be inventory and then /. So if person goes to inventory /, it's going to go to inventory URLs, and inventory.urls is going to call this. If we didn't provide any other specifications after the /, then this is going to hit this route, and this route is simply going to return the index folder, right? Our index function, which is inside of our view, which simply returns the index.html template. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to refresh this. You're not going to get back anything, so page not found. So if I go to / inventory and I press /, we can see now we're getting back hello world from index. So that's how that works. So now that we are using the index for that, now let's go ahead back to our inventory system. And in our inventory system, what we're going to do, I'm going to import something. I'm going to say from django.contrib I'm going to go to out import. You're going to import views as, and I'm going to call it out_views, just like that. So in here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another path. So I'm going to call it path, and this path is going to be the root path, and what is going to return is going to return to us it's going to be let me just close that, out_views login view as view. Make sure you close those parentheses there. So it's going to say out.login view, which is a login. This is a login view that Django already provides for us. Means that Django already has a system for us to be able to log in without having to create it from scratch ourselves. So Django already has a login system. So we're just going to create a template to display that login system to the user. So we're going to say out, which is this class that we have imported from django.contrib.out.views. We have imported it as out views. We're going to go into the login view, which gives the user the login form. And you're going to say as view, and as view you need to pass in as view if it's a class. Since it's a class, you have to say .as view. And also you can tell if it's a class because it has a capital has a camel case into it, right? That's a Python convention. So now we're going to write in the template name, which template is going to render. So template underscore name. So template name is going to be, we're going to provide in a template. You're going to call it inventory underscore system. You're going to create this template just in a moment, and then you're going to call it login.html. So you're going to go to inventory system /login.html, and you can also provide in a name to this template, to this sort, and you call it name is going to be login, just like that. So that's what you're going to do. So now I'm going to need to provide this template, because we created a template name to this inventory system. It's a folder that we currently don't have, so we have to create that folder and then /login.html instead of that folder. So I'm going to go in here and create a folder called inventory underscore system, and then I'm going to create that folder, and instead of this folder I'm going to create a file called login.html. So great. So inside of this folder, we're going to inherit from our layout.html template. So we're going to say extends, and then I'm going to pass in here to / it, because we're going to direct. And in login.html, we're going to go back extends. We're going to go back to directories back. What you're going to type in is going to be layout.html. So we're going to type in layout.html, just like that. You're going to inherit that template. So now we need to override the block content. So I'm going to now pass in the block content here. This is going to be block content, just like we did in the previous tutorial. So it's going to be block it's going to be it's going to be block content. So it's going to be block content, and then you're going to end that block content right here. So I'm going to pass in make sure I pass in those percentage signs, those curly braces, then percentage signs, and then it's going to be end block, just like that. So now you're going to pass in the content rate. So I'm going to have a div. I'm going to create a div, and instead of this div I'm going to create a form, and the form method just going to leave out the action part. So make sure that you leave out the action, and you're going to provide the method, and the method is going to be a post method, right? Because you're going to be sending something to the server, so it's going to be a post method form. And then you're going to have a field. So you're going to have field set, and then inside of field set, what you're going to have, I'm going to create a legend here, just some set of stuff, legend, and I'm going to instead of this legend, I'm going to say login form, and then down here I'm going to go ahead and actually create return my form. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to create a div here, a div tag, and inside of this div, that's where I'm going to render my form. And to render the form, you just have to say form, just like that. So that's all we need to render that form. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually create a button for that page. The user can click login. So I'm going to create that button. So I'm going to create a div here. I'm going to go ahead and create a div, and inside of this div I'm going to have a button, and inside of this button I'm just going to create login, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and actually save this. So this form is going to be something that is going to be provided to us by Django. It's going to be passed into this template, and you're simply going to render it here. So you're going to refer to it as a variable, and you're going to render it here. So if you go back to let's check if our server is running. Yes, our server is running. So let me go to the root directory of our project. So if I press enter, what you're going to have is this form right here. Now this looks very, very, very bad and ugly. So how do we make sure that this looks good and nice for that, so the user can be able to log in just by filling in this form? Now this form actually looks ugly, so I want us to be able to add a bit of styling to this form. So there is a library for that in Django. So this is going to be Django. Just go and search for Django Crispy Forms on Google, and this will bring you to this page. So click on install Django Crispy Forms, and then click on the install command. So this is going to be pip install Django -crispy -forms. So I'm going to go ahead and actually go to my terminal, stop my development server, clear the terminal, and then paste that command in there, and then press enter. This is going to install for us the Django Crispy Forms. So great. So now that's being installed, we can also go to install files. You can see the install files. We need to add Crispy Forms. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go to my project, and I'm going to go into my my settings. Let me just close some of this up. Go to my settings, and I'm going to go to install apps, which is this part, and I'm going to go ahead and actually paste that command in here, Crispy Forms. And then let's go back to the documentation and see what the documentation says. So now we have different templates. So I'm going to use the Bootstrap template. So I'm going to copy this, and then go to my settings, and then let me go paste it at the very bottom here. So let me just paste it here, and then can say crispy forms. So let me paste that there, and I'm going to return. I'm going to use Bootstrap. So I'm going to use Bootstrap. I'm going to use Bootstrap 4. So just put it in the Bootstrap 4, and then that is going to work. So you can go ahead and actually take time to read the documentation on your own. I have read the documentation, and I know that there's a Bootstrap 4 template that can be used. So you can see it here, Bootstrap, okay, and Bootstrap 4. So, and all these templates are supported, but I'm using the latest one, which is Bootstrap 4. They haven't yet provided one for Bootstrap 5. So yeah, that's it. So if you go back here, you can see that it's already installed. So now how do we use this in our template? So I'm going to go back to my templates. I'm going to go back to layout.html, and I'm going to now provide in some Bootstrap classes here to make our form look good. So in the legend, let's say the legend, I'm going to add a class here, and this class is going to be border. I'm going to provide border bottom. These are just some Bootstrap classes, border bottom, and I'm going to do padding bottom. Padding bottom is going to be of type 2, and then I'm going to margin bottom is going to be of 4, and I'm going to go ahead text, and I'm going to center this text as center, just like that. And now in here I'm going to go ahead and actually import my crispy form. So I'm going to go ahead and actually put in a code block. So put in a code block here, and inside of this code block, this way we can now go ahead and actually load the crispy form. So I'm going to say load crispy, and then a crispy underscore form underscore tags. So this is going to load us the crispy form tags. So I'm going to come up, now that you have loaded the crispy form tags, I'm going to come up here, and then I'm going to pass it in here. So put a code block, and then I'm going to say it's going to be crispy forms, just like that, crispy, sorry. So this actually, I made a mistake here. This is going to be a token. So this is going to be CRSF underscore token. So what this is going to do, I'm just going to keep this in a moment. Before this allows us to provide some security to our website. So CRS stands for cross origin cross site request forgery token. So this is a form of attack that hackers can use to hack into your system. So CRF token provide security against such attacks. So make sure that you include the CRF token right here. So now that you have included the CRF token, which is going to make our form more secure, now we're going to pass in I'm going to pass in crispy here, and crispy here is going to make our form. It's going to pass in those bootstrap styling to our form. So I'm going to pass in here. It's just going to be a pipe symbol. So just passing it in here. Just pass it in there, and you can see we have that form / crispy. So this is going to provide our crispy form some styling. Okay. So now I'm going to provide in some styling here. I'm going to call this one going to be form - group. So I'm going to create form - group, and it's going to be some form group for our application. So form - group, and then in here I'm going to write some class as well, and this class is going to be form - group group, and then hyphen. This is going to be form - group, and then we're going to have a padding of 4. And inside of our button here, we can also style this button. So it's going to be btn dash btn hyphen, and then it's going to be outline. I was going to say outline dash outline dash, you're going to say success, just like that. And you're going to now have a type, and the type is going to be of type submit. So you're going to have type, and it's going to be submit, just like that. So now our form is already styled. So I'm going to go ahead and actually save this, and I go back to my website, and I can just go here and then check if the server is running again. So I'm going to now start that again, python 3 manage.py. So whenever I refresh my website, you can see that form we got an error there. So it's failing to load crispy forms. So I'm going to go in here, and you can see I load crispy forms. Okay, so it's an S there. So crispy forms tags. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my website one more time, and we have an error there. So in filter crispy, so I made an error there again. Sorry for that. This is really crispy. Okay, so now that I've fixed that error, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my website. Now you can see that form is properly displayed and has this bootstrap styling to it. So great. Now I want to add another more styling to my website before we proceed with this tutorial. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to add in a CSS template. Let's say you want to add in a bit of CSS to customize how your styling is controlled, right? So I'm going to go ahead and actually go to my settings.py, and in my settings.py I'm going to modify something to be able to display my static files. So I'm going to go into my settings, and in my settings I'm going to go up here. You can see static URL. It's just going to be a static, right? So I'm going to go ahead and actually customize this a bit. So I'm also going to provide let this be uppercase, so it's going to be static. This is going to be static files. So static files is going to be something, it is going to be a tuple, right? So we're going to put in a tuple, and this is going to be os.path.join. So this is os.path.join, and in here you're going to provide in the base URL. So this is going to be base dir, and then you're going to provide in a file called static, just like that. And then this is a single element tuple. You have to keep a comma right here. So now that's the setup. So this is going to now configure our setting for our startup file. So our startup URLs is going to be static, and then we have a static files here. So I made an error. This is a static file. So static files underscore, I made an error, static files underscore dir. So static files directory is going to be in base directory in a folder called static. So now let's just close all of this up. Let me just minimize all of this so that you guys can see. So now that I've minimized this, I'm going to go into my root directory, and I'm going to create a new folder called static. Just press enter. So in the static folder, so we're going to keep our static files. Great. So how do you keep these static files? So now you can create another folder in there, and that folder can be called maybe CSS, and that CSS can contain something else, right? So I'm going to create a folder in here, and I'm going to call it CSS, and then inside of this CSS I'm going to create a file called main.css. So press enter. So instead of main.css, we can paste in some code that is going to render this and there's some basics styling. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to my I'm going to go to my GitHub page, and I'm going to go into my static folder. I've already written this project, so I'm going to go into main, and I'm simply going to copy this right here. So I'm going to copy this, and you can pause the video and type out this. I didn't want to waste time typing on this, so I'm going to paste that in there. So that's all we need to do to register our static files. So how do we use our static files in our HTML? Now that's a good question. So let's go ahead and see how we can use that in our login template. So let's go back to our login.html login.html, and in here what you're going to do, you can just go ahead and actually load static. So now first of all, before we do that, let's first go in ahead and actually go to our main let's go ahead, let's use it here first. Let's say here let's put a code block, and instead of this code block, we're going to now provide in the following. You're going to say load, and then you're going to say static. So load static, and it's going to load that static directory for us. So now that I have done that, again providing that class right here. So I'm going to put in a class, and it's going to say class, and it's going to be content section. So this is going to be a content section. So let's go back and see if you refresh, if our page is going to now adapt those changes. So if I refresh this, let's see. Okay, we get our server has stopped running. So let me just clear the terminal and make sure I start my development server again, and I can go back to my website and simply press on refresh, and you can see our templates, our CSS hasn't been picked up. Let's do Ctrl Shift and R. It hasn't yet be picked up. So now let's go back to our main.urls. So in our main.url, what you're going to do in here, we're going to now provide, you're going to also now going to load that static. So we're going to go into up here, and of course all you're going to do is simply load the static. So I just put it above here, so here, and then I'm going to say put in a code block, and I'm going to now provide in here sorry, it's going to be in here, and then it's going to be load static, just like that. So that's all we need to do, and now we need to now write in our static file here. So we're going to provide in a link. You're going to we're going to specify the following. It's going to be a link tag. So this link tag is going to have the following. So we're going to say rel is going to be style, and then first style is going to be first style sheet, just like that. And then you're going to provide in the href. The href is going to be it's going to be a code block. So you're going to provide in the code block here, and it's going to be the following. It's going to be static, which is our static folder, so static, and in there we want to go to so providing again the file part. The file part is going to be in a quote size. So we're going to use single quote here, since outside you've already used double quotes on the outside. So on the in, you're going to say css / is going to be main.css, just like that, and that's all we need. And you can also specify the type here. It's going to be say type equals to css. It's going to be text /css, just like that. And then now we need to close all this. So now I'm going to save this. Now this is going to just load our static files in here, and make sure that you provide in load, and then now loading the static files this way. So now I'm going to go back to my website and then press refresh again, and then we have we have an error there. So it's saying static. So let's see where we got that. We got that error here. So we're going to go into, this is actually static, not status. So I'm going to go in here, sorry for that error, and I'm going to refresh this, so you can see we have that ready. So I'm going to do Control Shift and R. Sometimes you need to do Control Shift and R for those changes to reflect. So now let's go back to our form here, and our form here, let's add some more CSS styles today. So let's go back to our styles here. So I'm going to go to inventory, going to our inventory, and then go to login.html full file, and in there what you're going to do is going to provide more styling in here. So let's see what we did. So when you pass in the content section, you have passed in the form, and then you have passed in the form group and other form decorations, and then yeah, that's basically what we need. And in here we pass in our form group. That's great. So that's all we need to provide for our for that to work. So you can also pass in here form media if you want. So you can also pass in here as a variable. You can pass in form dash media, just like that, and you can go ahead and actually save that. So now that we have loaded static, and then we have passed in all this styling we want, we can just go ahead and actually save that changes, and then we can do a refresh here. So you can do Control Shift and R to do that refresh, and that's what we get. So let's try to log in, and I'm going to log in as Prince, and my password is admin1234. Okay, and then if I remember, I think it's 1234. Let me try to log in, and we got an error there. So let me try to log in again. It's going to be admin 1 2 3 4 and 5. So let me try to log in again, and it's going to log me in. Now you can see page not found. Now by default, if you log into Django, it's going to direct you to account/profile. Now how do we tell Django where to direct us after we logged in? So now that's what we need to now go to our settings. In our settings, we need to provide in a certain URL where to redirect us whenever we successfully been able to log in. So we're going to go into our settings folder. In our settings, we're going to provide go into here and then go into settings in our routes here, and then go into settings, and in here you're going to provide we're going to provide the root directory where the user needs to be logging. So login URLs, and if I'm going to provide in, this is going to be uppercase, login underscore redirect. So login redirect is going to tell the user, is going to redirect the user to this page when the user wants to log in without first going to the, where the user wants to access a page or a resource that requires him to log in. Then the login URL is going to now redirect him there. So I'm going to inventory, just like that, login direct URL, just like that, and then now in our login, we're going to provide in login underscore URL, and then this is going to be / is going to be just login. So login URL is going to direct the user to just login. Login URL is going to direct the user to login, and login is a name that you have provided to one of our if you go back to here, login is a name that you have provided to one of our URLs here. So it's going to direct the user to login whenever the user is not logged in, and whenever gets logged in, it's going to direct it to redirect the user to inventory /. So whenever the user gets logged in, it's going to redirect the user to login inventory, the inventory / inventory. And if the user is not logged in, he wants to access a resource, he's going to be directed to login page for him to log in before he is able to access that resource. So now let's try this again. Let me go back again. So let me go back, stop my development server and start it again. I hope that logs me out. So let me just go back again, and then I stop my development server, clear the terminal, and then start again. Start that again. So I'm going to start my development server, go back to the website, and then try to refresh this again. Just going to continue. If I continue, you can see it goes to let me see, let me try to refresh this. Okay, so I'm going to put in admin, just like this, 1 2 3 4, and then try to log in. So it's going to my password is wrong, I think, admin 1 2 3 4. So let me try to, I think it's 5. Okay, try to log in again. So you can see it has redirected me / inventory, and you simply get this page. So now we have been able to log in the user. So great. So now our login functionality is working. So now I want us to edit something before we end this tutorial. So I want us to go back to our templates, and then instead of our templates, we're going to go to inventory system, and so we're going to go back to, sorry, not inventory system rather, but our login page. So we're going to go back to here, and then go back to our layout.html, and our layout to display some specific features to the user, else will not display those features to the user. So let's go back here, and what you want to do, I'm going to create a code block here. So I'm going to create a code block, and I'm going to pass in those two parameters, a code block, and I'm going to pass in those two parameters here, and I'm going to check if request.user.is underscore authenticated. So this is going to check if the current user is logged in. So let's end that if block. So I'm going to now go ahead and end if. So if the user is logged in, what do you want to do? So you can return a certain URL to that specific user, right? So now the first URL we're going to return to the user is when the user gets logged in, is he able to see a button to log out. So let's call this log out, just like that, log out, just like that. So now that the user is going to, if the user gets authenticated, this is going to be a true, and the user is going to be returned another link called logout. So if I just go back here and I try to refresh this, we should be able to see that logout there. It doesn't really reflect for now. So if request, so I made a spelling error there, if request.user, okay, if request.user is authenticated, and then you show that user logout page. So let me just try to refresh this again, and we have that logout there, right there. So now we have that there being displayed. So this actually, I made an error there, so this is actually going to be outside of there. There's some logout, so let me, this is just some CSS error that I made. So this is going to be a list item, Inside of that list item, we're going to provide in this right here. That's what we're going to provide in this. We're going to now empty this, properly format this, and now we can go ahead and actually try to refresh this again. Now you can see it's properly formatted. So now where's the route for user to be able to log in? So now let's go ahead and actually create that route. So now we need to go back to our project directory once more time. So go to our project, our main project, and then go to urls.py. So if you go back to our main project and then go to urls.py, it is here that we need to provide this. So I'm going to copy this. It's going to be very similar to this. So I'm going to copy this thing, copy it, and then I'm going to repeat it one more time. So I'm going to paste it here one more time, and this is going to call this logout, and this is going to be called logout. So I'm going to call it logout, and then I'm going to go in here. It's going to be called logout. So logout view. So let me just make sure I get that right. So I think the spelling is wrong there. So let me just first make sure that you keep a comma in there, because it's a list, right? So every element has to be separated with comma. So it will be logout view. So just like that, logout view, that view, and you're going to return which template are you going to return. This is going to be called logout forward slash. So if you go to the forward slash logout, it's going to return to you this template called logout.html. So let's go ahead and actually create that template, and it's going to be in here along with the login. So I'm going to go ahead and create in here. It's going to call it logout.html. So press enter, and then in here we're going to go ahead and actually fill that. So what do we want the user to see whenever the user logs out? So that's what we're going to specify in here. Now what you want to see, this basically see, is that we're going to tell the user to just say you have been logged out, and then provide a login for another link for the user to be able to log in. So I'm going to go ahead and actually provide in here. I'm going to say extends, and then extend is going to extend the layout.html. So it's going to be two directories back, / is going to be called layout.html, just like that. So now that we have done that, you're going to extend the block content, and you're going to now extend that block content here. So you're going to say block content, just like that, and you're going to make sure that you end that block content by using another code block, and then end block. You can also provide in content if you want here, but I'm not going to provide in that right there. So what you're going to now do in here, we're also going to go ahead and actually just create a div here, and this div is going to have a small, this person is small here, and this is going to have just this text, you have been logged out, and then you're going to provide in another HTML link here, and this is going to be a href link, and it's going to have a href. For now I'm just going to leave it as a #. We'll come back to this just in a second, and then you're just going to say to this login again, just like that. So now let's provide in some styling for this. So let me just provide in some styling for this. It's going to have a class, and we're going to have a content section, and then in here we're going to now provide in let's provide also this class. It's going to have a class it's going to have a class of text dash muted. So you can have a class of text muted, and yeah, that's what we need. So in providing the content, you're providing a code block here. So in providing this code block, make sure you include the %signs, and instead of this code block, you're going to include the following. You're going to say URL, and you're going to say login, and this login is the name of this. If I go back to my URLs here, is the name of the route that you've said logout. Sorry, it's going to be called logout. Login rather. So login. So I'm a bit confused. So login is a route that the user needs to use whenever he wants to log in, and this needs to be in double quotes. So since you have used double quotes outside, I'm going to use single quotes inside. Okay, so this is going to be quoted. So login and then quotes, and then login. That's that login, which is the name of this route name. Okay. So that's how we need to do to enable the user to be able to log in. So whenever the user logs out, it's going to be taken to this page, and then he can be able to log in using that link. Okay, so let's try this out. Before we can try this out, let's make sure that we load static for this to work. So it's going to say percentage code block, and then say load static. This will work without loading static, but I need to load static because I'm using this class content section that is a custom HTML in my static file. So I'm going to now load that there. So now that's all we need, and I can go ahead and actually save this, and can go back to my website and then refresh this. do a hard refresh, Control Shift and R, and then I'm going to go ahead and actually try to log out, and this is not going to work for now. So let's go back and see why it's not working. So let's go back to our our layout.html, and you can see currently in our layout.html we're not providing the route for user to be able to log in. That's why that is not reflecting in there. So how do we do that? Now that's simple. We just have to create a login route, a URL to that page. So what you're going to do in here, providing a code block. So I'm going to delete this, providing a code block, and then make sure you keep the percentage signs. And then what you're going to say URL, and then you say simply say URL, and then you simply say logout. So just say the single quotes and then log out, just like that. And logout is the name of that that function right there, or that route function is the name of this route function. And the name of this route function is the name that you have to use here for that user to be able to log out. So you can go back in here, try to refresh this, and you can see if I press this, if I hover on this, you can see on my on the root on my bottom of the page browser here, you can see saying /logout. So if I press on this, it's going to log me out, and you can see you have been logged out, and you can press login again, and this is going to bring me to this page where I can fill in the form, and then I can now log in again. So I'm going to say admin, then 1 2 3 4 5, and then I can go ahead and actually log in again. So it's going to log me again, and again log out again. So this is how the login and the logout functionality is not being reflected, because it's not supposed to look like this. So now let's go ahead and actually fix that. So let's go back to my code, and in my code I think I made an error in specifying my URL. So let's go into settings here, into my specifying my basic stat directory. So if I go into URLs here, what I'm going to do is supposed to be S, okay, so capital S. So it's going to be static files underscore dir, so dirs rather is there. So this is plural, not singular. So that's that. So now let me just go back to my page, and I'm going to do a hard refresh. So now you can see it has already I think there's an error there, so I need to go and start my yeah. So you can see that changes have been reflected there. I don't know why that happened, but that changes have been reflected. I think the server didn't start whenever we did a hard refresh. That's why we can see now that has been reflected, and it is all working. So if I go back and I try to log in again, it should now reflect even on my form. Even on my form, you can see now it has also reflected here as well. So it has all this padding and all this shading and white, and the background being a little bit dark. So that's all for this tutorial. So guys, if you enjoyed this tutorial, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell so you can get updated whenever I upload the next videos in this series. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Keep safe.